Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 14 of the Making Noise podcast. My name is Adam Kana. I am the host. Today's episode features my friend Francesca Leo. She's a flutist and an entrepreneur, and she has this project that we talk a lot about in this episode. It's called Playing Without Pain, and you can visit her website, playingwithoutpain.com, to learn a lot more about it. But the whole idea behind the project is to provide resources to conduct research and provide resources for musicians to encourage healthy practice habits, to make sure you are preventing any chance of injuries taking place, that you're taking the proper amount of downtime away from playing, you're managing your stress levels. All of the things that have to do with a healthy lifestyle is what she's focusing on, and it's an invaluable resource. Please go to the website. I guarantee you'll find things on there that you will that will be pertinent to what you might need. And we talk a lot about this stuff in the episode here, so I think you're gonna get a lot out of it. Just a few announcements. I'm opening up my guitar studio, so if you are interested in learning how to play an instrument or improving your skills on a guitar, or you just want to take up a musical hobby, send me a message, send me an email. I would love to hear from you. I'm offering 3 different rates. If you pay weekly, that would be a full rate. If you pay monthly, that's a 5% discount. And if you pay quarterly, that's an 8% discount. So yeah, please send me a message, find me on social media, send me an email. I hope to hear from you. And one other announcement, Lisa Nair. Lisa, I don't know if I said your last name correctly. I'm very sorry. Composer and mezzo-soprano Lisa Nair is offering a free virtual workshop for composers. I believe it's called Text Setting Like a Boss, and it's a 3-day workshop. I believe it's February 2nd to the 4th. I'll put this all in the description of the podcast, but it's a free workshop teaching you how to write for voice, how to set texts and text painting, all kinds of stuff. So I would highly recommend, if you're a composer or you're just interested in learning how to write for the voice, sign up for that workshop. I think that's all the announcements for today. So thank you all for watching and for listening. If you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. If you're listening on any of the platforms that the podcast is hosted on, please follow and download the episodes. And yeah, thank you all. My name is Adam Kana, and I am a collaborative composer. Join me in the search for a career in classical music. This is the Making Noise podcast.
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you beautifully.
Okay, I'm using my external mic.
It sounds great.
Thanks.
Yeah.
It's a Yeti.
Oh, you got a Yeti?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Well, I ended up, because I had to do some like live stream performances, and it seems to be like closer to the instrument sound that it produces, but I don't know.
That's cool. What is the Yeti that you have? If you would mind.
Yep.
Awesome. I love that. It has such like a 50s radio show vibe.
I know. The red color was cheaper, but I also like it, so it worked out. Yeah.
I like that. I get a little bit of style in it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
That's cool. How has it been working out? I mean, it sounds great right now.
It's been pretty good. I've used it for online lessons too, and my teachers have said that it sounds like pretty good, like closer to live than just the Zoom audio. So
yeah. You sound very clear right now, and like I almost feel like we're on the phone or something, like a high quality phone too.
That's awesome. Good.
Yeah.
Looks like you have a good setup too.
Yeah, I've had this microphone. It's called an M Audio.
Okay.
This pop filter. I don't want to grab the thing, but it's for a Zoom microphone, like a Zoom recording.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't even go to the microphone, but I use it regardless.
Yeah.
I do want to get a different microphone though that isn't like this has a USB connection, and I want one that has like an actual jack, like a.
Yeah. Mine's just USB too. Yeah.
It's convenient for the laptop, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just being too like I don't know.
I understand.
Yeah, it's weird. I'm slowly getting more adjusted to this sort of thing though, like using all this hardware and equipment to do these sort of like Zoom calls and stuff, and
Yeah.
it's interesting. Have you? So you have a microphone. Do you have any other devices that you purchased?
Yeah. So I just got an interface, which I'm super excited about, but I have no idea how to use. So Chris has been helping me with that because I'm doing a couple of pieces with electronics,
Mm.
and I just realized that I didn't really need the interface to do what I needed to do for this specific piece. So I was like, oh, okay, well, I just got it, but it'll come in handy in the future because I'm just playing a piece with fixed electronics. So I just need to run like a click track through my headphones and then the electronics through my speakers. And I am still figuring out how to do that. It sounds so easy, but I'm just like, I'm not good with all that stuff.
Oh my god! Don't
So
worry.
yeah.
I'm with you.
Yeah. But yeah, so I have that. I have a ring light that I'm not using right now because my music stand is maxed out with gadgets, with my laptop and microphone. But that has a phone stand, so that I've been using that. Yeah, that's about it. But
You're diving straight into it, Francesca. This is great.
I mean, like there have been so many online things that like I don't know. I had to have some gear, but
Yeah, that's great. I mean, especially like obviously the time we're living in, you have to.
yeah.
But do you know the cellist Ashley Bathgate? I think
I've heard of her, yeah.
she's blonde, and she was affiliated or is affiliated with Bang on a Can, and I think now she's working with Eighth Blackbird or something.
Cool.
I have no idea exactly like what she's doing right
Yeah.
now, but she did a presentation, or I don't know, a conversation on Next Fest, which is like some online, well, not online, but it's an organization to present resources for people in the community. And she talked a lot about how like when the quarantine hit and stuff like that, she was like, all right, I'm going to buy this microphone. I'm going to buy all this stuff. I'm going to buy all these lights and have like this whole, like she basically turned her room into a performance studio.
Oh, nice. That's yeah, I feel that.
It was so cool. I was like, oh, the entrepreneurial spirit in that,
Yeah, for sure.
And hearing you say, doing the things you're doing right now, I'm like, yeah, there it is. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been useful. Really useful. I'm glad that I was able to get that gear, and even when things go back in person, I think there's still going to be a lot that is still going to be online. So I know it's going to come in handy.
Yeah, it definitely will. And not only that, like you're developing another skill set too.
Yeah, slowly but surely. There's been a big learning curve. I learned video editing this year, which has been probably the most exciting thing that I've learned how to do. I am very good with iMovie now. Before the pandemic, I had no idea how to use iMovie. So there we go.
It's so funny because that's exactly what I've been doing with this is I downloaded a free video software, editing software, and I've been, getting acquainted with that. And now I'm like, I'm having so much fun making videos.
I know, it is fun.
What has this been like for performances and stuff, or?
Yeah, it's been for it started out actually I got a job with the Art of Practicing Institute as a social media assistant. And so I was having to edit a lot of master classes down to just a 1 or 2 minute clip. And then I would pull sections from the whole video. And so at first I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to do that. So I watched a bunch of tutorials. And then once I started doing it, I was like, oh yeah, that's actually like pretty straightforward. And then I got really into it. And then I've had to record several lectures this past summer that I to submit to festivals. And I figured out pretty cool ways to do it where I can like overlay the audio over pictures and then intertwine it with video. And so it just looks like a little bit more professional than just recording you talking on Zoom and screen sharing. not you specifically, but, but one talking on Zoom
Right.
and presenting. But yeah.
That's fantastic. It
Yeah.
definitely makes all the difference.
Yeah, definitely.
Having the program that I use, like one thing that I do is I record my audio through a like separately onto like a digital audio workstation, like kind of like what's it called, Reaper. And
Yeah.
so I then I record the video on its own thing.
Okay.
And then I overlay it. And like in order to do that, you have to see the sound wave.
Yeah.
To see exactly where the audio, where it lines up, so that there's
I don't know.
the video and audio syncs. You know.
Yeah.
I actually do that with this podcast. So like after we're done today, I'll put the audio into Reaper to to make it sound a little cleaner and stuff, and then try to line up the video and whatnot. And without having a program like that can actually do that, it's like it makes all the difference.
It does. And I'm still learning things every day. I'm sure I'll learn something from you during this podcast as well.
Oh my God. Those things are crazy. You can go so deep.
Yeah, I know.
All these, like,
it
any
is
software,
crazy.
really.
Yeah.
I don't want to take away from any time that you wanted to talk about anything specific. How much time do you have today?
I'm good. I can go an hour and a half.
Cool.
Yeah.
We can go as long as you want to too. I don't want to create any specific like make it like it has to be a specific time limit or anything, or
oh yeah, no problem.
Whatever you're feeling. But I'm kind of curious with your Playing Without Pain project.
Yeah.
How has that shifted? Like, well, I definitely want to talk a lot about that, but like,
sure.
How has that shifted with being online and everything through Zoom? Has it been like challenging? Because I imagine there's a physicality to it when you're doing you're trying to do like a master class. Well, I don't know. Maybe if you could explain that a little bit.
Yeah. So it actually started as a website. So that part hasn't changed too much. I'll give a little bit of background for anyone who might be listening and not know what the heck I'm talking about. So my website, playingwithoutpain.com, I started it in 2017 when I was at Bowling Green State University, which is how Adam and I know each other, which is awesome. Go Bowling Green, go Falcons. So yeah, I conducted a research study that I went through the institutional review board process. So it was an official research study, and I distributed a questionnaire via email to the College of Musical Arts. And the premises was to determine the prevalence of performance-related injuries in collegiate music students, and also the stress connection with stress and performance-related pain. And so there are several similar studies that are conducted like this that were also conducted on a larger scale. My findings were that 84% of students were suffering some form of performance-related pain. The similar studies that I've reviewed support that statistic. So there was one conducted with a wide variety of music schools. It had 1,001 participants, I believe, and that showed that 67% of all of those students were experiencing performance-related pain. Some smaller scale studies, more like mine, showed closer to 80 or 90% of students. And one of the other significant findings in my study was that there was a significant correlation between pain severity and stress levels. So the week leading up to a performance competition or audition, stress levels were generally higher, and pain levels were also higher in the participants in the study. So that was really interesting, and it got me interested in studying more about the mind-body connection, which I can talk about a little later on maybe. But yeah, so it started, and I also have a long history with performance-related injury as well. So that was what motivated me to start this project. For anyone that might not know, I basically didn't know what to do when I was in pain. I didn't know that anyone else was experiencing pain at the time of my injury. And so once I started diving into this research and conducting it myself, I was really shocked at the high amount of students that were in pain and just didn't feel like they could talk about it, or didn't know where to go for help or what to do. So I started my website shortly after that project, and it's basically just a one-stop shop for performance-related injuries. So you go there, and there's so many resources from professionals that have also conducted research, contact information for medical professionals that specialize in performing arts health, and body mapping teachers, Alexander Technique teachers. So basically, I just wanted it to be an accessible source of information for students and a reliable source. So I vet all of the resources that I put on my website, make sure they're all professionally based and based in research. And yeah, so that's been really exciting. I created social media platforms that I still maintain. And so my Instagram is @playingwithoutpain, and Facebook is the same handle. So that's all been online. Ever since then, I've been presenting on my research, and I'm doing a certification as a body mapping educator, also doing a meditation teacher training certification right now, and just continuing to do research and learn more about the common causes of performance-related injuries and ways to treat them effectively, efficient practicing strategies that you can implement to reduce the amount of time that you spend on your instrument per day, and just exercise routines that you can implement and put at the beginning of practice sessions to help get your blood flowing and your muscle temperature up so that it helps prevent injury as well. So it's a multifaceted industry kind of. So there's the prevention, management, and treatment of the pain. So that's kind of what I've been diving into, especially after I graduated this past year. So that part has all stayed the same. As for the presentations, I did give a few in person over the last year, which have been awesome. For me, the online presentations are so much better because I am so afraid of public speaking. Like it's getting better, but I get so nervous. And so in person, I feel that nervousness a little bit more, but hiding behind a screen definitely helps a little bit for me. So it's actually helping me practice my public speaking skills so that hopefully I will be able to go in a little bit more confidently when I step in front of a group of people in the future. So yeah, so that's how that has changed, but it's been awesome because I've been able to connect with so many people across the country that I likely would have never crossed paths with had we not gone to a completely digital world. So that's been really awesome.
Yeah, that's one of the silver linings with this whole pandemic and everything like that is the accessibility and connection we have to one another.
Yeah, absolutely.
I probably wouldn't be doing this podcast if it didn't happen. Like
I love this podcast. I'm so happy to be a guest on it. Thanks for inviting me.
Oh man, that means a lot. No, I'm so happy that you're you wanted to be a part of it. That's cool.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, and there's so much in there that you said that I'm so curious and interested in. But yeah, one of the great things about doing these things online, like you were saying, the sort of stage fright of doing presentations.
Yeah.
Is there's all these little tricks, like if you want to have on Zoom, like just only have your face on there or not your face,
Yep.
Because then you're not sitting there looking at a sea of people. You're just looking at like a screen or like you can even put a piece of paper or turn your monitor off. Like there's so many ways to help that. Do you do anything with your presentations to kind of like those sort of tricks to help you feel a little bit more comfortable, or do you just jump in?
So sometimes I just jump in. The more I practice it, I'm getting more comfortable kind of going off script per se. When I demonstrate things, I have the camera on. I like to have it in gallery view sometimes, just to see everyone else and interact with them. But when I'm citing kind of more of the research portion, I usually have an outline on a Google Doc that I pull up and kind of it prompts me throughout the speech and keeps me on track, especially if it's timed, because I tend to babble a little bit. But so that's been helpful because I could have the outline pulled up on my screen and be looking at that while I'm talking and not get super nervous by seeing other faces. But everyone's really friendly that attends, so I shouldn't be nervous. It's something I'm working on. So
Yeah, it's definitely a process.
yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and I'm sure too that they're just so excited to be getting that information from you.
Well, that's a relief. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. So that makes me feel good. Thank you.
Totally. That's one of the biggest things that I like about like everything you just said about the whole process of you, like you said, you had you had a history of pain related injuries, and you recognized that other people had it too, or it wasn't being discussed, and then you started doing some research, and now you have this whole project going on, and it's like I love the entrepreneurial aspect of all that, where like you identified a problem, and then you realize that it's not a highly discussed topic, and so you were like, all right, well, I'm going to start getting into this.
Yeah.
And now you have this whole thing going on where with I love that you have all those resources on your website. Like I was looking at that.
Oh, thank you.
And the one I like the one with practicing, like healthy practice habits. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, or like the efficient practicing template. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. And so I just think it's so fantastic that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that can be hard to do, like the risk. I don't say, well, I guess it is a risk, but like you're venturing into the unknown and that sort of thing, like when in your life have you ever created a website specific for trying to educate people on a specific topic,
Yeah.
or
yeah,
a program?
I really didn't even know it was a thing. And then as soon as I heard the words performing arts health, I was like, that's it. That's what I want to do. Like I got so excited about it. Because I was like searching for something like that. And I was like, what is it? Why can't I find this one thing that I like know that I really want to do, but I'm not sure what it's called yet. And then as soon as I heard that, I was like, yeah, sold. That's it. That's what I'm going to devote the majority of my career to. And I'm still performing too, of course, but it's definitely like that's what I want to do.
Yeah, I mean, and it's definitely so evident how excited you are about all of it, which I imagine also contributes to the like you said, you can tend to babble on about the topic.
Yeah.
Like when you care so much about something, you're like, oh my god, you got to hear everything.
Yeah. I mean, if you talk to my parents, I'm living back with them for a bit, which has been great. It's been great to spend time with them. But I am constantly reading a new book or a new article, a new study, or taking it like a course or a webinar on it. I just I can't get enough of it, which I do need to take a break sometimes. So I'm working on that. But it's just like if I ever have like a free half hour or something, I'm like, okay, what else can I find about it?
That's awesome.
Thank you.
You just keep digging. That's like the endless student, or whatever you call that. Like you're always a student, right? You're always learning, even when you're established in the field, whatever your career path is. It's like, you should always be educating yourself. And so the fact that you're like, oh, I got 30 minutes, let me see what else I can learn.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's there's a fine line between like an obsession, like a healthy obsession and an unhealthy obsession. So I gotta like make sure that I'm just taking time to chill and like watch some Netflix and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need to be careful with that stuff too. Like I'm reading this book on tuning theory right now, and
awesome!
It's exciting. It is explaining so many historical things, like
that is so cool.
Why certain consonances at a certain period were considered a dissonance and stuff, and But anyways, if I read that too late at night, then like as I'm going to bed, I'll be thinking about
your mind just. Yep, I understand.
Yeah. I'm curious about something. This is more just a personal thing, and we don't have to get too heavy into this.
Oh, of course.
You had mentioned at the very beginning when you were at BG and you were interested in exploring the topic, and you had to approach a academic, what was it, some board or something like that?
Yeah, the Institutional Review Board.
Right. Okay. Yeah. What is that exactly?
So it's basically it's how they vet research studies and how they just make sure that the practices are ethical. So you have to go through this training program about ethical practices in research, and you read a lot of studies that have been conducted in the past that have been really terrible.
Like
so you learn about everything what not to do with research, and then you have to submit a proposal for your research study to get approved, just to make sure. It's kind of just like it's protocol to make sure that the study that you're conducting is safe for all participants. So mine came through pretty easily. It didn't really need a ton of review from them, but I still got the stamp of approval, and it also went through the BGSU research department too before I conducted the study. We sent them the questionnaire to make sure that all the questions were okay to ask, and so yeah, it's basically just like officially approving your research.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I thought that would be something that might be interesting to get into for a moment, in case there's anyone who's curious about that, because I've never done any research like that, so I'm unfamiliar with that process.
Yeah, it was a pretty lengthy process, especially the training program part, but I'm hoping to do more research in the future, so that will be useful.
Is it something that you have to continuously do every time you want to pursue an experiment or anything, or?
That I'm actually not entirely sure about. I believe like if it's been a certain amount of years before your last training program, I imagine there would be some updates to it, so you'd likely have to do it again to some level, but you definitely have to submit it for approval each time you do a new research study.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I've never watched. I know on Netflix there's like I don't know if it's a documentary or just a TV show on the Stanford experiment, but I know of the Stanford experiment, and I imagine that's a big reason why they have the thing you're talking about.
There were a lot of reasons similar to that. There have been so many studies that have just kind of like flown under the radar that have been horrible. And you learn about every single one of those in that training program. So it's a little bit like you're like, you come out feeling like, oh, like icky, you know? Yeah. But then you're like, okay, well, doing research on performance related injuries is okay.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's weird to think that even in those studies, they were doing it to try to learn something new that could be that, like, I would imagine might have been for I don't know, like to try to prevent something else, like to try to prevent that thing from happening, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm being too nice, but
yeah. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there was a reason. Was it ethical? No.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
God, that's so wild.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But if anyone listening is interested, check out that documentary.
Yeah. I still haven't watched it yet myself, but but so with when you started getting into or started pursuing this more and more, it's interesting to hear you talk about this, because I've honestly haven't really heard it discussed much either.
Mm-hmm.
And in my own personal, like when I was getting guitar lessons and stuff, I think the closest that I came to having that discussion was mainly talking just about being relaxed, you know, like knowing I play guitar, so I'm doing this like I'm playing guitar.
Yeah.
For those listening, I'm doing the motion of playing air guitar. Like, for example, when you play the guitar, doing this is terrible for the shoulders, right? Having your elbow out. So like having your arm just coming up. I mean, I'm sure you can probably get into this way deeper than I could, but from what I've been taught, it was like having a straight wrist, elbow bent, like, you know, in the proper format, whatever. I'm having a hard time explaining this, but
no, you're doing great.
Thank you. But basically, like, that's probably the closest I've come to really being exposed to playing, you know, like you said, performance health. And there was a little bit of Alexander technique talked about, and body mapping when I was in choir in my undergrad.
Okay, great.
And that was always really interesting.
Yeah.
But, What about with your private studies? Like, was it a topic much at all in your lessons, or was that part of the reason that kind of led you into doing this research?
Yeah. So in my early years of study, I actually, and this is going to be hard to explain on the podcast, but I was playing like with a bent wrist, with my flute, which was really not great. It was actually cutting off some of the circulation, to my hands when I was playing. And I learned that because one of my early teachers played like that. And I don't think that she ever realized that it was bad or ever it wasn't affecting her for some reason. So that was how I learned to play. I got to, after that teacher moved, I went to a new teacher. That was when she pointed out my wrist bend in my right wrist when I was playing. And so we were working on trying to get this. So the term is like neutral wrist. That's ideal for playing. So not bent and not like really stiff. So there's no tension, just like kind of neutral. So that really helped. But at that point, I had already kind of like been playing with my wrist bent for a couple of years. And so that was contributing to some of, I initially got diagnosed with forearm tendonitis. That was contributing to some of that. But after I've been doing a deeper dive with the body mapping and Alexander technique work the past few years, I held a lot of tension in my playing just in general. And I would lock my left hand in place when I was holding my flute. And a lot of kids especially learn like that because they're so afraid. They have this big, huge flute. And it's like, it feels really awkward to put it up when you first do it. And they're afraid of dropping it. So they tend to like grip on the flute. That's definitely what I did too, because it just wasn't talked about, which I'm not putting blame on anyone because, you know, it's just, it wasn't widely known. And the people that did know it could talk about it. But I think there's also been a stigma with teachers, like they don't want to say anything that could potentially mess their students up or say it wrong. So I think a lot of teachers just have avoided talking about it, which is understandable. But hopefully now that it's kind of sparking a discussion more, there's a lot more presentations on wellness for musicians in a lot of festivals that I've been seeing and participating in, which has been really awesome. And there's other people in our age group that are also talking about this and advocating for it. So my hopes is that if you're a music educator listening to this, there are a couple of really great courses you can take that basically give you like a ton of information on how to prevent injuries in your students and what to do if you have a student that is injured and how to guide them through it. There's a specific course, the Performing Arts Medicine Association Essentials of Performing Arts Medicine certificate course. So I can send you a link to that if you'd like to link it in the description.
Definitely.
But I took it this past summer. It took me about a month and a half. I did like an hour a day. And they were broken up into chapters. But it was basically, they took doctors, they took physical therapists, Alexander technique teachers, neuroscientists, psychologists, all professionals that were advocating for musicians and performing artists to come give these talks. And there was one whole segment on injury prevention and how you can implement that into your teaching. There was a whole segment on how to support an injured student and develop a return to play method that was collaborative with their healthcare providers. So that was really awesome because it's something that, you know, students get injured all the time. And a lot of teachers are afraid to interject because they don't want to say or do anything that might make it worse. And so that was really helpful to know. And also just having a general awareness of anatomy. You don't have to be an expert. Either that or have a couple of body mapping or Alexander technique teachers kind of on call that you can refer students to, or physical therapists as well if they're in pain, can really help in your teaching. And I was fortunate to have really good teachers that did talk about this to some level, but unfortunately my early years when I started playing, it just wasn't talked about, and I was doing a lot of things that really contributed to the development of my injury. And as I'm learning more about it, there's a lot with the mind-body connection. There's a huge emotional component of it as well, because when you're constantly stressed and you're constantly like beating yourself up and kind of criticizing yourself, which we all do as musicians, especially, that can really impact your physical pain as well. And it's subconscious most of the time. So you don't even know that you're carrying so much tension in your body until you suffer it from pain or an injury later on. And so it's really important to take care of both your mental and your physical health. And I think teachers can play a huge role in that, just by offering a supportive ear in case the student is experiencing external stressors, or having just a general level of understanding of a couple tools in your toolkit that you can teach your students and then refer them to other professionals in the event of something more severe.
Yeah. Wow. That course sounds really, really pertinent.
Yeah, it is. I would highly recommend it. I think they offered it in the summer, then they offered it in November. I'm on one of their committees. I'm hoping that they will offer it more frequently. But if not, definitely next summer online. So
Yeah. Yeah. And the last thing you mentioned too about students having a lot of stress already as it is.
yeah.
I think, especially with music students, it's,
Mhm.
you're taking like 15 credits at least, depending, it depends. I don't know. I always stayed at 12 credits because I didn't want to overwork myself. But
Yeah, good for you. That's smart.
but I mean, if you're a performer, right?
Yeah.
You're in orchestra, you're in chamber ensembles, you're doing solo performances, you have your lessons,
Yeah.
you're doing your theory classes, history, your gen ed classes, you're
Yeah.
carrying your instrument everywhere.
Yeah.
You have like other activities that you have to do if you're in like a club or something, and then your social life, like you have a life outside of that, right?
Right. And
Your
that's
personal
important.
life. Yeah.
Yeah.
um it's interesting hearing you say all this, because it's kind of clicking in my mind even more, thinking about all that and then how it contributes to the overall stress, both mental and physical, that we experience as
Yeah.
music students.
Yeah.
um
Absolutely.
yeah. What is something with that, what do you find to be, this might be a complex question, but like what do you find is one of the more challenging aspects about this field, and for people to start to develop, or like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that's a great question. It's definitely one, trying to have people take this seriously, because a lot of musicians, we are so stuck, and I was there too, and I still am there sometimes. We're so stuck in this, we have to be perfect, we have to please our teacher, we have to advance to the next competition, or else like it's really almost as if our self-worth depends on it. And that's been something I've been unpacking myself too. So it's really hard to make changes when you're in that mindset. And if you aren't actively experiencing pain, it's hard to implement changes to prevent injury, because it just seems like so far off. You're like, well, I'm fine now. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing because I don't have time for anything else. And so it's kind of just getting people to really value the importance of taking care of themselves, especially when you're a student. And also, especially in the classical music industry, there's just been a regimen and a tradition of teaching for so long that has been the same. And it's been successful in some ways, producing really amazing players, but a lot of musicians are so messed up from it, and like myself included. It's just so much pressure, and it's constant criticism, and just really because you're always improving, and of course you want to always be improving, but it's the mentality surrounding it that can be really detrimental. And so I think when a lot of people first hear about like taking care of themselves, and I was this way too, I was like, oh well, that's great for someone else, but I can't do that because because I don't have time for that or something like that. But it's really, yeah, so I think that's the most challenging part, is encouraging people to make changes to take care of themselves without, or having them realize that they can do that without losing progress or losing momentum. And a lot of that comes down to what I think is the efficient practicing, which is really important, because rewind 3 or 4 years ago, I would be in the practice room for 5 hours at a time, ramming the same run over and over again, making mistakes, continuing to get in my head like, oh, you stink, you're a terrible flutist, and like just getting in that really bad headspace where I would just like, I gotta practice more, this has to be better. And that's really, you're honestly just ingraining more mistakes. And I definitely was. And I wasn't making any progress. And I was actually probably regressing in my progress because of how much I was just berating myself in the practice room. And I also think that when you're presented with a lot of repertoire that you have to learn, like with lessons and ensembles, a lot of people tend to cram practice, which for me, that never worked, because it never stuck if I was trying to learn a bunch of music all at once and then play it the next day. And I know sometimes you can't avoid that. Like you'll get thrown a gig last minute, which of course you would want to take, and you have to learn the music. But when you can, learning the music as far in advance as possible and just giving yourself time to learn it, like scheduling, like, okay, today I'm going to take 1 hour. I'm going to take a break in the middle. The first half hour, I'm going to work on these 2 lines from this piece. The second half hour, I'm going to work on like these 2 lines from this other piece, but I'm going to be really intentional about it. And then you come out of the session with a sense of accomplishment because you've actually given yourself time to work in with intention, and you're more focused to when you just don't like throw everything at yourself all at once. And for me, implementing that has been really effective because then the work sticks with me. And if I put the piece away for a couple of days and then I bring it back out, it actually gets better because your brain subconsciously continues to work on things that you practiced even when you're away from your instrument, which is why breaks are so important. So, yeah, and I think that seems so scary to most, especially young students or even professionals that have been practicing 6 hours a day their whole lives, because the possibility of practicing less makes it seem like, oh, well, I'm going to get nothing done and I'm not going to progress. But actually, that's not the case. So yeah, I would say that process is probably the most challenging. And so that's something I've been working on too, because I've had a lot of questions like that myself. It's like, well, how am I going to get better if I only practice 2 hours a day? But if you're really focused about it and you give yourself breaks and you're intentional and you don't try and do too much at once, it actually, like, it's been working. I haven't practiced more than 2 hours a day since this pandemic started, and I've gotten everything accomplished that I've wanted to. And I mean, coming off of a master's degree was helpful with that because I was practicing a lot more then. But I've slowly been trying to work on reducing the amount of time, but also maintaining the same momentum per se.
Right, the amount of focus and like high quality practice.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's so fascinating.
Right?
Especially, I've never thought of that before. How you mentioned people are resistant to changing their behaviors in concern of slowing down progress.
Yep.
Wow. I mean, it makes sense because it's hard to change your behavior.
Yeah, it is.
I know. I've read before that the reason why most people who win the lottery lose it in a year because they never developed the financial behaviors to handle how to handle their money. So like they transfer their crappy money spending habits. Only now they have a lot more money.
Interesting.
It's gone.
Wow.
So, yeah. So, wow. that's heavy. Like,
Yeah, I'm sorry. I threw a lot.
no, no,
Yeah,
no,
it
no,
is
no,
heavy.
no. No, I'm just,
Yeah,
I'm like,
it
I'm
is.
thinking it in my head, and
Yeah.
I'm like, there's so many things I'm curious about and I want to go into and
Yeah,
stuff.
of course.
Um, what is, what is something? How do you approach that with people, especially when they're very resistant with altering their behavior?
Yeah, I haven't worked directly with too many people on this yet. I'm hoping to in the future. So right now I'm doing a lot of that work on myself because I'm definitely like type A. Like I have to do everything. I have to do as much as possible, and I have to be perfect at everything. So that's what I've been unpacking too. But a lot of musicians are similar in that way. And so I think that by doing this work myself and kind of speaking from personal experience, it might help other people relate to it. But when I when I do talk about it with people, I do often refer to case studies of it, like friends that have done it, or people I look up to that have come out with their injury stories, and kind of like how they've overcome it, and they're still incredible musicians and are getting professional opportunities playing in orchestras. Um, so it can be done. And I think by showing people success stories like that or telling them, it makes it easier. Because when you're told, okay, well, you have to make all these changes, then people kind of like freak out, I think, which is understandable. Like you're like, well, I've gotten this far with work, like working the way I have been, and it's been working for me, so I'm gonna keep going. When they're actually like really like hurting, and even if they don't kind of admit that to themselves, it's just so much easier when you're able to take care of yourself and prioritize yourself, and in addition to doing your craft. And I also think it's important for people to know that you are your own person, and playing music is what you do. It's not who you are, which is hard to understand sometimes because as artists we just put everything into our work, and I'm sure you can relate to that, where it's hard to kind of separate ourselves from our music. And that's also another interesting topic where the reason that a lot of artists take criticism so personally is because they put so much of themselves into their music making or into their composition. And so when you receive a piece of negative criticism, you really take that personally. And I have struggled with that my whole life. And so that's another component, just really being able to identify your sense of self apart from your music, and then saying music is what I do and what I love, but it's not who I am. And that also helps build confidence, and it helps take criticism, which is something that we have to be used to as performing artists, because it's the nature of the industry. And I think being able to separate yourself helps, and then you realize that, oh, I am my own person. I'm worth investing time to take care of myself in addition to playing my instrument or doing my craft.
Oh wow, that's such a great perspective to have. I I'm serious amateur hour is happening right now. I forgot to silence my phone, so let me just do that really quick. I apologize.
Oh, you're fine. Did it go off? I didn't hear
Yeah,
it.
it started going off and then it distracted me, but I did get everything you said.
I didn't hear it. That's good.
Total amateur hour, I'm telling you.
No, it's fine.
Whoa, we've been going for an hour almost. Holy crap.
Yeah.
Wow.
Went by quick.
It flies by.
Yeah.
I love what you just said about music not being everything you are, or what was the line you said exactly? It was like,
It's not who you are, it's what you do and what you love.
right. um Stephen King has this book on writing, which he describes his craft or whatever, and he talks about how in the 80s or whatever, when he like started reaching success and everything,
Yeah.
he was heavily into alcoholism and drug addiction and stuff. And one of the things he always wanted was a giant mahogany desk for his writing, you know?
Yeah.
He placed it in the center of his office, and it was this big desk, whatever. And he said, like, through that whole period, it was a total mess. It was, you know, he doesn't even really remember that period of his life from all of the, drugs and alcohol and stuff. And when he became sober, he threw the desk out, got a tiny little desk, and put it in the corner of the room.
Wow.
And the idea behind it was that his life, he doesn't want his life to revolve around his work. He wants his work to contribute to his life.
Yes.
And that's what you just said made me think of that.
Yeah. Have you seen the movie Soul yet? From Pixar?
No.
It just came out. It's on I think it's only streaming on Disney Plus, which I was able to get a free account for 1 year with my Verizon account. So that's why I've been watching on Disney Plus. But yeah, if you have a chance, I think you can do a free trial. Yeah,
I do have Verizon.
Yeah, you can do like a 7-day free trial. Just do that and then watch it. But
what's Soul all about?
It's a great movie about a jazz musician who and I don't want to spoil it too much, but he ends up dying pretty early on in the movie, and so his soul goes up to the great beyond, and basically it was right before he was supposed to play like the gig of his life with like a huge jazz musician, and he had invested like everything into his music. And so the premise of the movie is him kind of reflecting on what kind of life that left him with, other than his music. And he was often like not feeling happy because he's like, well, I don't have this, or I haven't performed with this person, so I'm not worthy. And so the whole plot is really just revolving around like what the bigger meaning or what your purpose is in life. And he ended up discovering that his purpose is not just music, it's a lot more than that. And music was his craft and what his passion, but it wasn't him.
Yeah.
And like so yeah, if you can watch it, yeah, I would highly recommend it. And it's it was pretty sad, like some of those Disney movies like really get you. But it was, yeah. But I was like, oh my gosh, this is such a great movie. Like everyone needs to watch this. Because it's just like, and it's outlined in a Pixar movie. So it's like, it's easy to follow. It's fun to watch. And then you get a lesson out of it.
That's beautiful. I love that.
Yeah. So that really explains kind of what I was talking about. Well, I think.
That's great. It's so cool to hear that there's a movie that's almost like presenting the work that you're doing.
Yeah. Well, this is a part of the work that I'm doing, but yeah, and a lot of other people have researched this too. It's a big topic in the therapy world right now, as well as kind of like figuring out your sense of self so that you're not as attached and dependent on the way that circumstances turn out in either the professional world or otherwise. But yeah, and especially for performing artists, because we just really you have to invest so much of yourself into it, and so it can get really detrimental. And I like what you brought up about the Stephen King. Was it a novel you said, or a movie?
It was it's a memoir. It's
a memoir,
like a how-to in a way.
Okay.
It's also like, it's a memoir, so it's also like biographical.
Okay, yeah, I'd be interested to read that, definitely. But
it's a cool read.
Yeah, that's awesome. And like when he was talking about his struggle with addiction, that's really common too. And that was something that was mentioned in the PAMA course, that it's kind of a trait of perfectionism, where like if you're constantly not feeling good enough, you turn to other substances to cope with. And kind of the way out of that is really just rebuilding confidence in yourself and finding healthy coping mechanisms. But his story is so similar to that of so many artists, unfortunately. Yeah.
This is so interesting. Really quick.
Sure.
I can hear you, but it sounds a little muffled. I don't know if there's maybe like a repositioning, or if you
Sure.
mute mute your mic and then turn it back on if that'll fix or not.
Yeah. All right. Hopefully you can cut this part out.
Don't worry. We got some editing
Okay,
editing tools.
Good. Is that better?
It sounds about the same.
How about now?
Maybe.
All right, I'm gonna try without. This is without the external mic. Is that better?
It's clear. Now you sound distant.
That's so weird.
Could you try the external mic again?
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me
now? Yep.
Okay. Does it sound okay?
Yeah, that sounds good. Thank you for
oh yeah, no problem.
Adjusting and stuff. Yeah. Oh, what was I just gonna say? See, there's like detours in there, and then we get lost. Like,
yeah, it's okay.
The psychological aspect is so prevalent, I think. I mean, like you were saying, we critique ourselves constantly, harshly too.
Mm-hmm.
And we have such high expectations. Mm-hmm. In previous episodes on this podcast, I know people, we've talked about how we're almost trained to critique ourselves.
Yeah, we are.
It's like you're trying to perfect the craft, the interpretation, the musicality, your performance, and and not only that, you're constantly being compared. Like, whether or not it's like, oh, this person's better, this person's worse, but like you're entering competitions, you're competing to get a specific position in an orchestra or whatever, or to have like, I don't know, like be selected for a grant, right?
Yeah.
It's I've been kind of thinking about this lately, like what a weird freaking way that our field operates.
I'm gonna come out and say it's a little messed up.
I think it is too. I don't want my livelihood to be dependent on if I get selected for a grant.
I know, but that's how it feels. And especially, I think in the orchestral world, there are so few spots, especially for wind instruments and percussion and other instruments where there's only one or two positions open. In general, whenever a spot opens, there's thousands of people that go to that audition, and they're all probably really highly prepared. Mm-hmm. And the committee will pick based on their preferences for that day. And I think the hardest part is, especially with orchestral auditions, it's a lifestyle that you have to commit to. You have to just commit to practicing your excerpts so much, because that's all that they're asking in the auditions. So it's, you spend your whole life playing them, and on average, there have been studies about this, on average it takes a musician about 40 professional auditions before they get a position. Wow. And that is so, like, I haven't gone the orchestral route yet, but I can imagine how detrimental that could be to your mental health along the way, because it's really like, it almost seems like if you don't get a position, then like you spent all this time working so hard for something that didn't happen. And it's like, that is that is so hard. And I think just being able to find success out of other things while you're going through that process is really important. And you could have played great auditions, your best auditions, and sometimes they're just looking for something specific, and that's the reason you weren't selected. It's not that you didn't do an amazing job, which I think that's so hard because it's just such a competitive industry. But yeah, I've heard stories from a lot of people on how it's just so hard to be able to just maintain your sense of confidence when you're facing that many potential rejections. But then at the same time, once you get the position, it's like so fulfilling and rewarding, but the process is definitely kind of brutal.
Yeah. Could you knock the volume back a couple clicks?
Yeah. Oh my God. Am I so loud now? I'm so sorry.
That's okay. No. I mean, it's the Making Noise podcast. So like,
I'm I'm like screaming.
That's one of the things that I'm always like, whenever I go back and edit, I like get so loud. I start yelling and like
I know I do tend to like yell. So
it's yeah.
is it okay now?
I think so. Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah, you're totally right with the fact that we're constantly trying to like prove ourselves for things, and it's hard to not seek that validation because
Yeah.
you have to be accepted by someone to get the thing that you want.
Yeah. I know.
And I think that goes back to what you were saying about having some sort of purpose outside of what like I
Yeah.
guess like a vision statement in a way.
Mhm.
I mean, I know like I keep track of everything I apply to, only to know that what I applied to, when I applied, what I submitted, and then like I can reapply again if I don't get accepted. And in 2020, I think I applied to like nearly 30 different things,
Oh my gosh.
and I didn't get any of them. Like
I understand that. Yeah.
yeah, and it's not like woe is me. I'm not trying to like
No.
it's just to display like to confirm like what you're saying is it's like yeah, it's you have to keep putting yourself out there, and it's hard to maintain that balance of like sanity and like
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And rejections are essential in the path to success. Like you have to have rejections to be successful. And just knowing how to handle them in a healthy way is really helpful, especially when like you said, like you can apply to like so many things, and then if you don't get any of them, like a lot of the time it's common to question your sense of self-worth, when often the case is just that they only had like one or two openings, and there's a lot of factors that go into decisions. But yeah, I definitely understand, like when I was preparing for graduation this past May, I submitted to a lot of orchestral fellowships, and I was really hopeful that I would get at least one of them, and I didn't get any. And that was kind of like I put all my eggs in that basket. And after that, I was like, I really felt like a failure. But then I had to work through that process, because it's like, okay, well, you know, so many people applied to this, and it doesn't mean that my tape was bad necessarily. It was just the circumstance, and you have to kind of like take that, and it's always helpful to ask for comments if they have comments from the judging process, because you can learn from it, but it's really hard. Yeah, and then you will get that one acceptance, and then it kind of makes everything all better, in my opinion.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, that's been sort of the case for me. And great advice on asking for feedback. That's definitely.
Yeah, but that's hard too, because then you're like, you don't want it to be rubbed in after you get a rejection. But it's also, it can be really helpful, because if you apply for that same thing in the future, and there was something that they thought could be improved, and you go in and improve it, maybe it'll increase your chances in the future. But yeah, it's like, that's hard for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is something with applying to like whatever orchestra opportunities, or like job opportunities or grants or whatever, is there something in, because that's like more of a psychological thing than the physical aspect of playing and stuff like that. What is something like what is like one thing that you think would be beneficial for most people to be doing to help them maintain that balance? Like we mentioned having a vision and stuff, but like I'm being really, really vague with this. Is there anything specific you could say that's like, have a routine, or like drink tea, like
Um, this it might seem a little obvious, I guess, but like for me, it has always not been. Just try and have a hobby outside of what you do, which has been so hard for me, because my hobby is what I do, and that's been like another part of the identity crisis. Like, who am I outside of what I do? So I've been working through that. But yeah, just really having like healthy coping mechanisms, I would say. So for me lately, I mean, like I definitely have the occasional like beverage, but
Totally.
but but yeah, outside of that, I typically like the way I unwind is usually I value my Netflix time before bed, and I like will get invested in a show and I'll watch a couple episodes of it because it really just helps take my mind off of things. And then I also have been really loving exercising lately, especially when we spend so much time inside. Because exercise really it can help reduce symptoms of anxiety, which is something that a lot of people don't know, I think. And so I've always been a really anxious person, and when I do a workout, I feel a lot better after, and then I sleep a lot better too that night because it just like puts you in a really great sleep mood. So just doing any kind of movement really really helps me, and you have to figure out the kind that works best for you depending on your lifestyle. But even just like going for a short walk, because I have not been leaving the house much these days, so just forcing myself to go outside, walk around the block has been really helpful. So yeah, does that kind of answer your question, or were
That was a great
way off
answer.
topic? Okay.
Yeah, totally. Like that
Yeah.
was that was just direct. Like, yeah, do a little bit exercise, have a wind down period.
Yeah.
That's important. I mean,
Yeah.
that's something that I've steadily started implementing, the whole wind down idea, because
Yeah.
ever since BG, I had insomnia, and I also had reverse insomnia,
Oh my
like,
gosh.
and breaking that, like going back to what we were saying before about having to create new behaviors to have a healthier, balanced life.
Yeah.
Breaking that, like, my sleeping patterns and behaviors was very difficult, and having a wind down period was a pivotal thing for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And so if you did have insomnia, probably the watching something before bed. I think that's not recommended if you have trouble sleeping. Actually, it's not recommended in general, but I do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you do have trouble sleeping, I think what I've been researching is like the recommendations are trying to have like electronics like outside of your room so that when you come to your room, your brain kind of gets into the sleep mode. So yeah, that's something you can try, but it's so hard because like that's the only time I have to like watch my shows and I look forward to it. So it's not the best for sleep hygiene, but it helps me psychologically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's
Yeah.
yeah, it works. It
Yeah.
works.
Yeah.
I have no scientific backing or anything, but yeah, I know, like, for me personally, like, watching something that's just very mellow, like a comedy,
Oh yeah.
or a movie that I've seen already that I know so well, so it's like I'm not as invested in it.
Yeah.
That helps me. I don't I don't want to miss anything that you may have wanted to get into at all. What are there any topics, or like, is there anything that you wanted to discuss? Because I would love to get into it that we haven't talked about, or
Yeah, we've covered a lot. Yeah, I'm considering going back to school for actually an MBA. Because at this point, I think that would help me apply for full-time positions in arts administration, which would be awesome. But it's also like a question I think a lot of musicians have been asking themselves at this period. I've heard two different possible outcomes after this pandemic, that like performing will become like obsolete is one of them, and that musicians should consider like different career paths. I've seen articles written about that, but I've also seen on the more optimistic side that actually a lot more job opportunities will be opening after this, because I think a lot what people are predicting are that a lot of people that hold faculty positions right now and positions in orchestras will likely consider an early retirement as a result of this pandemic. It's kind of a good opportunity for them to do so if they were considering it. And so some people, a couple career coaches that I've been following. Do you know the book Beyond Talent?
I have it right over there.
Yeah, Beaching. So she's awesome. She has a Facebook group that I'm in, and you should join too because it's
I would
great.
love to.
But she's predicting that there's going to be a lot more openings after this, and that actually it might be a good time to be applying for faculty positions and for orchestral jobs as soon as things begin to open up again. So I'm more inclined to follow the optimistic path, but I'm also considering what I want to do as well. And I think for what I want to do, an MBA would be helpful. And I still want to continue playing. But yeah, so that's been like another like transitioning period in my life where it's like, do I want to like try and do performing full time or follow the administration path and keep performing, but not make it my full time work. So yeah, I enjoy doing administration though, so it's exciting.
Yeah, that's great. I think there's I feel like the last couple of years, maybe even the last like 10 years, arts administration has been a pretty big, there's been a boom in there in a way.
Yeah, yeah, it's great. And my hope is that at once I get the body mapping certification, it would be awesome to apply for faculty jobs as a body mapping teacher for music schools, and also work in career consultation for musicians in the music entrepreneurship centers, which is the office that I worked in at Manhattan School of Music when I was a graduate student. I loved it, and I loved being able to help musicians like find the true path that they want to go on and embrace their creative projects and realize that there are not only three paths that you can take as a professional musician, like because a lot of people think you can only do orchestral or teaching or arts administration, but really there's a lot of different niches within that you can absolutely make a career out of, but it's not talked about as much.
Yeah, that's something that I've talked about quite a bit on here with people, with other guests, and you know, like kind of like what you were saying before about all of the orchestral, like there's such a high supply of musicians and not enough demand. You
Yes.
know, like the amount of orchestral seats or faculty positions that are available is like this much. The amount of musicians is like, you know,
Yeah.
like way up there. Um, so I think that's a really good perspective and point to bring up. Um, I I would like to say that if you ever decide to start your own like playing without pain consultation firm or something like that, I'm totally in favor of that.
Awesome. Yeah, that's definitely something I'm considering too. And so I'm at the stage right now where I'm just trying to get as many certifications as possible, and do the research and make sure I'm really knowledgeable about how to properly coach people through injuries,
Mhm.
because it's a really fine line that you have to walk if you're not a medical professional. So you just really have to be trained in it, especially the somatic practices like body mapping, Alexander technique. Yoga is great as well for musicians and things like that. So that's definitely in my vision board, and I think having an MBA would also help with that.
Totally.
So yeah, well, thank you for planting the idea in my head. I was thinking about it a little bit, but now you've inspired me more. So
Well,
thank
you
you.
got full support from me, Francesca. I'm telling you.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good idea.
Totally. I mean, I think it would be a cool thing, especially if there's not a lot of people talking about it, and then you are the voice, and taking it all across the country, all across the world, and like I don't know if you expand to the point where it's like you can bring on coaches who work under
Yeah.
you, or like you know,
Yeah.
I mean, it
Yeah.
just I just think it's so fantastic that you've developed this thing all the way to this point right now, and it just seems like there's a lot you can do with it. So.
Thank you. That means
Oh,
a lot. I appreciate
yeah, yeah, my pleasure. Um, I have a bizarre question in a way. I just want to let's see what time we got here.
it. Okay.
Okay. You're okay until like 1:30, or do you
Yeah.
need to?
No, I'm good. Yeah.
I don't want to, please
Nope.
feel
Nope.
free to be like, hey, I got to get going, like just, it's all good.
You're fine.
Is there an instrument that you found to be most prone to injuries?
Flute's a big one,
Yeah.
definitely because of the asymmetrical nature of the instrument. Also, string, especially violin and viola, those kind of have an asymmetrical aspect as well. The instruments that you do hold asymmetrically typically are more prone to injury in the research that I've done. But all instrumentalists can develop, especially repetitive strain injuries from repetitive motion. Guitarists are also prone because of the way that you sit and also hold your instrument as well. There's a great book that you should check out by actually my former chamber coach, David Leisner. So he teaches guitar at the Manhattan School of Music, and he suffered from focal dystonia, which is a neurologically based playing related disorder. And it basically, he lost control of his muscles and his hands, and he found his way out of it by himself, because that focal dystonia is being researched more now. But when he was going through it, it was a medical mystery for the most part.
Oh, how scary.
And he found a way to work past it and retrain his body how to play. So his book is titled Playing with Ease, and I'll send that to you, but it's a lot specific to guitarists and their playing position as well, and playing with ease and freedom and less pain. But he's awesome. If you ever have the chance to talk with him, I would highly recommend it.
That sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I remember years ago, I had this write-up. It was like the 6 golden rules of conquering performance anxiety or something.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he wrote that.
That's possibly, he's written a lot. Yeah, he's pretty prominent in the performing arts health field, okay, especially after his book came out.
There's another book too, and I don't know who the author is, but it's another guitarist. Is it called The Musician's Way?
Yes. Yeah, that's a good book too.
It's all about like practice habits and stuff.
Yeah, that's a really good one.
Yeah, I thought about that when I saw your article about efficient practicing and everything like that.
Awesome. Yeah, that's one I haven't totally finished reading yet, but it's been on my list. I have so many books on my reading list now, but that is a great book.
Yeah, it really is. It definitely breaks apart the whole idea of like how to practice, like you said, like efficiently and everything.
And the art of practicing. So I'm working with the author of that right now. She has a summer institute that's also really helpful for musicians that have kind of gotten into this really self-critical negative headspace and are trying to find their way out of it. And often those same people have the performance-related injury aspect as well. It really goes hand in hand. So her book titled The Art of Practicing talks a lot about practicing methods too, and in regards to preventing and managing pain symptoms. So I would recommend that one as well if you're looking into practice books.
Definitely. That's great. Are there any books that, excuse me, I'm getting really gassy over here. Coffee does it to me. Books on mental health that you would recommend?
Yeah. I'm like looking in front of me right now because of my bookshelf. So I'm trying to figure out which ones I would recommend. There's a lot actually for mental health. If you're interested in really just learning more about the psychology aspect of things like anxiety, depression, and other things along those lines, the Institute for Brain Potential is doing these online 6-hour webinar courses that I've been taking. So you can sign up. They're about like $70 per course, but you get a ton of information and you can watch it for a specific amount of time before it goes away. But they have courses on like the psychology behind perfectionism, which is one that I took. That one was really interesting and I learned a ton. They have a lot of different courses on the mind-body connection, on the like generalized anxiety disorder and understanding and treating anxiety. They have webinars about depression, about OCD, about other anxiety related disorders as well. So if you're interested in learning more about mental health, and those are all conducted by psychologists, and so those are all really awesome. I've learned a ton about especially the scientific reasoning behind what is occurring in the brain when you have depression or anxiety, and ways to manage it and treat it. So that's been really fascinating. But there's also a book called The Body Keeps the Score, which is really fascinating for the mind-body connection. And it kind of explains like trauma and how that often sits in our bodies if we don't process it, or if we don't process it properly. It kind of sits and it can turn into physical pain. So that's really an interesting book.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That does sound really fascinating.
Yeah.
I'm curious about that. I'm gonna have to look into it.
Yeah, I would highly recommend it.
I like the institute that you had mentioned too.
Yeah, and
Webinars.
they have like courses on seriously every topic you could ever imagine, and they're offering them constantly. It's a lot of their pre-recorded webinars from the past year, and they're just continuing to release them. So you can sign up. It's 6 hours separated in 4 chapters, so it's like an hour and a half each, and you have like 2 months to watch it, so you don't have to do it all in one day.
That, you know what's cool about that too is you can rewatch it.
Exactly.
And like
yeah.
keep taking it in and like
Yeah.
Getting more into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just had this thought. If at any point you are conducting any more, you need like a person to experiment with or like to test stuff, I will gladly volunteer myself.
Awesome.
I'm dead serious too. I will gladly volunteer myself in whatever
Awesome.
capacity I can,
Cool. Well, I'll definitely keep that in mind. I would love to do more research. So thank you for volunteering.
Yeah, totally. Or
as a test subject.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I can say that as a composer. I mean, I have I purchased this desk during grad school with the drafting table where it comes up. So like when I'm composing, I'm not hunched over my desk. It's like
That's great. Good for you.
That was a game changer for me because I got so tired of
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I would highly recommend all people who are anyone's a composer or whatever.
Yeah.
Get a drafting table.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. But oh, there was something else I was gonna say. I lost it.
No worries.
Yeah. Oh, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yes, that's a good one.
That book, I've read it once like years ago. I revisited it like 2 years ago. And every time I read that thing, that's one of those books where like I get more from it than I did the last time.
I love that.
Yeah. It's awesome. It's incredibly powerful. It's like I view it as like the self-help book of self-help books, like.
Yeah, I have not read that one yet, but that one has been highly recommended to me by several people. So gotta order it. Gotta add it to the list.
Sure, yeah. The long list of things to read,
I love it though. It gives me life.
I'm gonna throw one thing in there from the book that I think is from the first chapter. Is he defines responsibility as the ability to choose your response to external stimuli. Yeah,
that's so important.
I love the redefinition and breaking it up into 2 words like that, and recognizing that it's like you do have a little bit more control over how you handle things than you would think.
Yeah, and that's something a lot of people don't realize either, which it's so important because having the sense of control just gives you a sense of confidence and power that everyone needs a little bit of that.
Oh, I love that. Having control gives you a sense of confidence.
Yeah.
That should be like a bumper sticker or something. Or like, a quote by you with a nice starry background and a meme or whatever you want to call it. Like...
with the Bernie Sanders.
He's just sitting there like.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like what I love about that is him sitting like that is the exact opposite of what that quote is.
I
Well,
know.
I don't know. Maybe it's not actually. Like you could just be sitting there very confidently, like I don't give a shit. Like
You know, it would make you think.
I love that.
No, those memes have been so funny.
I know it's been great. Oh my god. Um, yeah. Well, I'm gonna before I stop the recording here. Is there anything you want to plug? You want to like mention some project you got coming up or social media handles? I mean, you mentioned at one point, but mention
Yeah.
it again.
Yeah, sure. So the projects I'm working on now, I'm doing some recordings. I'm recording Luciform by Mario Diaz de Leon, which is what I've been working with the electronics for. So I'm learning a lot.
Oh,
Um,
great composer.
so yeah, I'm hoping to eventually record a solo album maybe in the next few years. So I'm getting a couple demos ready to send to some labels. So if anyone has any ideas of labels I can contact, that would be awesome. Because that's one of my goals as well. I think it would really help me stay motivated to play. Not that I have too much trouble with, but it's just something to work towards, which is awesome. So that's what I'm doing playing wise right now. Other than that, I'm doing a meditation teacher training program that I'll finish at the end of this month. So I'm hoping to also do a yoga teacher training program in the next few months as well, in addition to body mapping. So I've been working on those and just continuing to give presentations on my research. We're working on actually publishing it officially in a medical journal. So I've been working with Dr. Lisa Martin, who is wonderful, and you may know from Bowling Green as well. But we've been working on getting that officially published, so that's been exciting. So if you want to check out more of my work, you can visit my website, playingwithoutpain.com, or if you're interested in learning more about my playing, you can go to francescaleoflute.com. You can follow me on Instagram at playingwithoutpain, and I also have a Facebook page at Playing Without Pain as well. And feel free to always send me a direct message or an email. I have a contact form on my website and would love to hear from you.
Oh, amazing. So many great things.
Thank you.
You're doing a amazing service for the music community. So
thank you.
Yeah, but yeah, thank you so much for being on here, Francesca. This was so much fun.
Yeah, thank you for having me.